Blood is Thicker Than Water by Janet Bowstead. Let me tell you about the colours. A pair of Red Sea Bannerfish, buttercup, yellow and black, curve below me and turn to face the challenge, guarding their inlet of green frills of cabbage, coral, and a backdrop of pink pulsing polyps. Clownfish, barley, sugar, orange and white, snuggle into the soft beige tentacles of their host. A russet table coral shimmers with darts of violet orchard dottybacks like slivers of midnight. Clouds of orange lyre-tailed coralfish coordinate a split-second retreat into the head of coral pinnacle towering towards me. Let me tell you about the colours, because there are things that are harder to tell. I need to take you back to a kitchen table. Nottinghamshire. A Nottinghamshire kitchen table. Eat your breakfast, son. I don't want you to imagine an 8-9-year-old squirming on his chair in front of rubbery eggs and gritty bacon. Imagine a 23-year-old, somehow sucked back into the family home after the fresh air of college. Mum is patting her hair behind her ears like an old woman. I know why I was sucked back. There are more lines around her eyes than can fit across her narrow face, and so they pile on top of each other like rumpled sheets after a night of tossing and turning. Cheer up, Linda! It might never happen! Dad chuckles to himself. In the 3 years I was away, Dad got brighter and shinier, and Mum looked like the rag he'd used to polish himself. She says she isn't ill. Dad says she isn't ill. He barks at her like a punter reluctant to leave at closing time. He calls it jollying her along. It looks to me like a journey she doesn't want to take. Cheer up, son. The two of you. You're like a wet Wednesday afternoon, and it's me that's having to go off to work. When I was your age... He always calls me son. Tacking the connection down, nail by clumsy nail. 23 years ago, he named me after him, David, like I was supposed to match him, follow him. I've lost count of the number of times Mum has apologised over the years. I don't want you to think you have to be like your dad. But that day, at the kitchen table, he suddenly announced he wanted to be like me. Well, son, see what you reckon to this. I'm going to learn to dive. I stared at him. I've had trouble getting much of a job, but living at home, I'd managed to save for a holiday. I got a discount through the dive club. Mum and I had been curled up on the sofa flicking through the website images of clear seas and fabulous fish. A startling change from the murkiness I'm used to off Weymouth or Brighton. You're going to... what? I mutter and try to swallow the emphasis. Let me tell you about the colours. A flush of red thunders behind my eyes. I pray it isn't showing across my cheeks. I don't want him to know how much I care. I stab the end of the knife into the golden dome of the egg, and the yellow spills loosely around the torn fragments of toast. I trace a trickle of yolk along the faded blue speedwell pattern entwined around the edge of the plate. I could book on the same holiday, couldn't I? What do you reckon? I could learn it all in a few days, then go out with you diving at the end of the week. I should think it's all his college group, Mum ventured. We exchanged glances. Had he overheard me trying to persuade her to go on holiday? To go snorkelling or on desert trips to the ancient places? No. Dad's insipid blue eyes flicked between us, totting up a calculation. My mind's made up. Bit of exercise, bit of sun. Do me good. 3 beautiful days, dazzled between the cobalt depths of the Red Sea and the dusty sorrel of the Sinai Desert. Dad was landlocked somewhere in a swimming pool, learning his dive skills, and I was floating, weightless over coral gardens, watching the shimmering rainbows of parrotfish pecking at the branches of stony coral. Stretched out on the deck of the boat between dives, the sun shivering goosebumps away from my pale winter skin. It felt so good to slough off the procession of pointless jobs and feel competent at something. Confident and confident. Laughing with mates, enjoying the world beneath the surface. On the 4th day, I had to put my shell back on. On the 4th day, Dad was qualified to come out on the boat. There had seemed a real chance he'd fail. Each evening he'd slumped on the terrace at the dive centre, cradling a beer. This diving's not easy as it looks, son. Let me tell you about the colours. The amber beer trickled like gold, flowing a shining smile from my throat to my eyes. The bougainvillea above me fluttered magenta confetti in spontaneous celebration, and I turned away so he couldn't see how deep my smile stretched. Are you going to have to spend an extra day in the pool, Dad? I heard a sort of knowing snort from one of my mates at the seeming innocence of my question. No. Dad heaved himself up in his rickety plastic chair, which creaked in protest. We can do the rest of the skills in the sea, apparently. I made it clear that I want to be out on the boat with you tomorrow. Let me tell you about the colours. None. Just black. The wind had whipped up a dust storm in the night, forcing gritty sand through the traditional Egyptian-style brickwork of our room. I'd slept fitfully and woke bleary-bleak to find Dad smiling at the Sphinx after a good night's rest. Much joking on the boat. We'll pair David Masterson with David Masterson! Ha 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 ha! I think my friends were surprised. I agreed to buddy up with him for the afternoon dive when he'd completed his qualification. But you see, human beings are not meant to breathe underwater. Hiss, bubble. Hiss, bubble. Hiss, bubble. It's the regulator that lets you breathe, feeding the air for every underwater breath. Never lose sight of your buddy. How could I lose sight of him as he flaps and flails above me, then below me, like a bloated pufferfish, zigzagging as he overcorrects his buoyancy? I'll go behind you, I signalled, then reached down to turn his tank valve back one turn. The coral plunges either side of us in an underwater wall as we travel along the canyon of the middle garden. Battalions of lunar fusiliers streak like blue torpedoes across our route. The gentle sway of the swell below the waves washes across my body like a caress. My father is labouring below me. He makes it easy. So easy to reach forward and turn the tank valve back just a little more. Crimson tube sponges reach out curious fingers as a pair of yellow-saddled goldfish skulk by the edge of the reef like pats of country butter. I'm about to point them out to my buddy, and then I remember who he is. I reach instead to turn the valve back even further. A regal angelfish, striped in bitter orange and blue, turns to watch me, its mouth gaping and pursing in mute regard. My father, Dad, is going deeper and deeper, beyond the 18 metres of his training. He'll be using his air twice as fast as me, and the valve is nearly closed now. I duck-dive down to turn it one last turn, returning the craggy wall of the reef to watch him suck the last breath of air his tank will give him. He flips upright and starts signalling frantically. Out of air. Out of air. His hand cutting across his chest in panic. Out of air. Out of air. His eyes are bulging wide, magnified by the water, magnified by his fear. It's something I've never seen in his eyes before. Fear. And dependence. He's reaching out to me to share my air. He's reaching out to his buddy, but he's lost track of where I am. Like a hogfish in Cleaner Race's cleaning station, he's expecting me to help him. But I am a mimic blenny, saber-toothed. I have the same coloration, but if you come close enough, I will suddenly nip off a piece of fin, flesh, or even an eye. I scoot above him, behind him. The bubbles of his last exhaled air jiggle nonchalantly up to the surface. I watch him fall forwards onto his hands on the sandy bottom of the edge of the reef, the useless regulator falling from his mouth. He twists and turns himself back up, trying to see where I've gone. He's cut his hand on a jagged branch of dead coral. Threads of blood billow out, looking bile green as the depth absorbs the colours. The emerald blood scribbles across the water as he tugs at his weight belt. The lead drops, flurrying the sand, and it begins to rise to the silvery surface. He has remembered his training. I swoop out from the reef edge, catching at his shoulder and rising up with him, turning the valve open again. Turning, until I see the regulator burst with bubbles. I hear a faint moan escaping from his mouth. Whether that is his terror or his training, it means his lungs won't suffer any damage from the sudden ascent. As we break the surface, I push the regulator into his mouth and hear a frantic, frightened breathing. I get him buoyant and we bob in the gentle waves. I'm holding his shoulders like a hug, looking into his bright, bloodshot eyes, watching him slowly recognise me. He's gulping, spluttering, like his lungs can't believe they're breathing air. As I turn him to pull him backwards towards the boat, he starts to shudder and sob. I pull him shaking across the gentle rocking of the sea and ready his hands reach out from the boat to help him onto the ladder and back onto the deck. He slumps onto the bench as the weight of his equipment is removed. I ran out of air. I ran out of air. His voice is high and quivering. The instructor pulls the air gauge out and cranes to read it. There's 50 bar left. You haven't run out of air. Her forehead is furrowed and she looks at me with concern. I look straight back at her. I've never felt so innocent. I don't know, I shrug. He started going really deep. He can't have been looking at his gauges. My father is doubled over, clutching his stomach. Someone brings a bucket. The instructor is trying to go through all the checks with him, watching him for the signs of decompression or lung overexpansion. But I know he'll be all right. He always is. Let me tell you about the colours. They're muted now. Clear eggshell blue sky fading to salmon as the last gasp of the sun clips over the butterscotch cliffs. The waves settle to bottle green, soft as a mossy bank. Every few seconds, the sun glides the ridge of a wave in fleeting silver, like the echo of a harlequin rage now stilled. I jump as my father grabs my hand. I'd intended to be standing so close. You saved my life, David, he whispers gruffly, squeezing my fingers like he wants to say much more. His cut hand is bleeding red now, like normal.